Hello and welcome to Aging Population Part 3, which is the last part. Last time we looked at how some people save a lot and retire early, maybe at age 55. This time we're going to look at what would happen if the government increased the age when it would start to pay pensions to old people. Most people can't stop work until they know they will get the government pension. So if the government said, in future, we will only pay after you reach age 67 instead of age 65, most people would have to work for 2 more years. For the government, this would make it a lot easier to find the money to pay the bigger number of old people. People would have to save for the 2 extra years they worked, so more money in, and they wouldn't get paid until they were 2 years older, so less money out. They also have some logic on their side. A 65-year-old today is not only likely to live longer, he or she is almost certainly a lot healthier than a 65-year-old was in earlier times. Physically and mentally, today's 65-year-olds are in better shape to continue working than ever. The data from the 1930s that they were using when it was set up showed the average age at death for males was 58. Someone who started work at 15 and died at 58 would pay into the scheme for 43 years and never get any money back. This figure is distorted by the deaths of under 5-year-olds who never paid anything in. To fix this distortion, the under 5s were taken out of the calculation by looking only at men who reached the age of 21. 45% of them never reached the age of 65, so the scheme never had to pay anything to them. That would make certain that the scheme had enough money to pay out the 54% who did reach the age of 65. So what has happened to the numbers since then? If you look at the table, it will tell us the answers. In the top left, you have males. In 1940, 53.9% of them lived beyond the age of 65. By 1990, at the bottom of that column, that number has gone up from 53.9 to 72.3, which is half as much again. But how long they live after 65 has only increased a little bit. So if you look at the right-hand column, for males it's 12.7 in 1940 and females 14.7. 1990 that has gone up to 15.3 for males and 19.6 for females. So it's increased 2.6 years for men and 5 years for women. This table is the USA population. The 2000 and 2010 figures for percentage increase of over 65 are the lowest ever. 9% in 2000 and 15% in 2010. But then in 2020, the increase over the 10 years is not out of line with the figures from the past. Now, we looked at the first 2 columns already. We've added the 2 columns on the right, the total US population and the percentage increase in the total population. You can see that every decade, over 65s are growing faster than the total population. So in 2010, we had 26% growth for the over 65s, only 15 for the population as a whole. 1930 is 37 versus 16. 1940, 35 versus 7. 1950, 41 versus 15. 1960, 35 versus 19. 1970, 21 versus 13. 1980, 25 versus 12. 1990, 22 versus 10. 2000, the other way around, 9% only for the over 65s and 13 for the population as a whole. But then 2010, we're back to the old pattern. The over 65s are growing more at 15% than the rest at 10%. 2020, it's a huge gap, 38% growth for the over 65s, only 7% for the total population. So the result of this mismatch is that the percentage of the over 65s in the total population is going up and up. In 2020, it was over 4 times as high as it was in 2010. When the pensions were first introduced in Germany in the 1880s, life expectancy for males was under 38 years old. In 1935, when the USA started paying pensions for over 65-year-olds, life expectancy was 58. Under both schemes, most people didn't live long enough to be paid. The ones that lived long enough didn't live for a long time after they qualified, so the payouts were quite small. Now, a higher percentage of the population reaches the age of 65, and on average they live for a long time. Putting it another way, today there are 4 working Germans paying the pensions of every retired person. But by the time today's youngest workers retire, there will be only 2. More and more people have qualified for payments, and the payments continue longer. If governments increase the retirement age, it would move the numbers back a little way towards where they were at the beginning, but still a lot higher than then. Many governments have suggested this kind of adjustment for their country. Almost everywhere, the idea has been opposed very strongly, often with protests in the street against the idea. In a democracy, it's almost impossible for a government to be elected if it says it will do this. In France in 2023, the government tried to introduce this without having a vote in the parliament. The reaction was extremely strong with violent protests. Part of this was about the idea of not making payments until people were older, but part of it was also because they were trying to avoid a vote about it. In fact, France makes payments earlier than most countries, from age 62, but people were very strongly against it still.
On est à 3 mois de mobilisation, donc je vous mentirais si je vous disais qu'il n'y a pas de fatigue. Voilà, on est fatigué, mais c'est comme une mobilisation, c'est comme un marathon. Voilà, c'est vraiment à la fin, les derniers kilomètres qui sont les plus durs. Et ben les derniers kilomètres, même si on doit finir à genoux, on va quand même les finir.
Il y a des millions de gens dans la rue, il n'y a pas de raison qu'on n'entende pas ce que les gens ont à dire. On ne veut pas travailler jusqu'à 64 ans, il y a d'autres sources de financement à trouver si effectivement il y avait un déficit.
Les enjeux, c'est quoi? C'est qu'on nous vole nos 2 meilleures années de retraite. Au nom de tout ça, au nom de toute la pénibilité qu'il y a en France, eh ben, on serre les dents, même si c'est dur, même si on perd de l'argent, mais il y a de la détermination. Macron est déterminé, eh ben, nous on est 2 fois plus déterminés que lui.
On attend que le président soit plus ouvert d'esprit à la population et on voudrait vraiment qu'il nous voit manifester et qu'il sorte de son palais finalement.
This kind of reaction throughout the world makes it almost impossible for a democracy to make this change. So what are the effects of the government having to continue making these payments without changing the age? One thing they have tried is to only make small changes in the pension when inflation happens. So example 1, 2020, the pension is 100 baht and a sack of rice is also 100 baht. So the old person can buy a sack of rice. In 2023, the pension is increased to 110 baht, but a sack of rice now costs 130 baht. So the old person cannot buy a sack of rice. The government should really increase the pension so that the old person can still buy a sack of rice. But to save money, they increase it by a smaller amount. Another way to pay for bigger pensions would be to increase taxes. This would be very unpopular, and any government that did it would probably not win the next election. A third way, and what happens if they do nothing, is they have to find the money by taking it from other things. So less money for roads or health or education. So example 2, in 2020, the pension is 100 baht and a sack of rice is 100 baht. And the old person can buy a sack of rice, same as before. In 2020, the teacher's salary is 200 baht and she can buy 2 sacks of rice. In 2023, the pension is increased to 130 baht, but a sack of rice now costs 130 baht, so the old person can still buy a sack of rice. But in 2023, the teacher's salary is 210 baht, and not enough for 2 sacks of rice anymore. So comparing examples 1 and 2, in example 1, the pension went up in 2023, but not as much as the sack of rice. And this meant the old person couldn't buy a sack of rice anymore in 2023. In the second example, the old person's payment went up enough in 2023, so they could still buy a sack of rice. But this was only possible because they only gave the teachers a small increase. Now the teachers can't buy as much rice. There is no extra money because they don't want to make taxes higher. So if they want to give the old people more, someone, in this example the teachers, has to have less. The government can do things like this for a short time. But if teachers' salaries stay low, graduates won't want to become teachers anymore. They will choose business jobs or other jobs with more salary. Then what will happen? The best graduates don't want to be teachers, so only the not so good graduates become teachers. The quality of teaching in schools gets worse, and when the next generation of students graduate, they are not as good as graduates in the past. Everything starts to go backwards. Is there a way out of this problem? Something's got to give. At the start of the Aging Population Part 1 video, there was a quote about researchers saying that half of the people in rich countries would live to be over 100 years old. If we assume that they start work at 18 and work to 65 and then live to be 100 years old, they will work for 47 years out of 100, or for only 47% of their lives. No wonder it's getting hard to find money to pay for it. People are spending less than half their lives working. The number of years they are paying into savings schemes is the same, but the number of years they're taking money out is getting longer and longer. And there's no reason to think it will stop at 100 years old. One possibility is that a large number of people will choose to work beyond age 65, not because they have to, but because they enjoy their work or it gives meaning to their life. Some people already choose to work well beyond the age of 65. Both Joe Biden and Donald Trump are a lot older and still working because they want to. Psychologists say that people who work feel better about themselves. They are more satisfied with their lives and like to feel that they are participating in and contributing to something of value. Certainly, many people who want a job but can't find one have low self-esteem and are unhappy about their situation. If people feel like this about their work, why do we think that stops at age 65? Is it really true that people will be happy to do nothing for over 50% of their lives? Apart from the cost of paying pensions, there is a big economic cost. Many people are very highly skilled by the time they retire. It doesn't matter if it's in a factory or in a bank or a shop. Often the older employees are the ones that people turn to if there's a problem. They have been around longest, they have seen many different situations in the past and seen what works and what doesn't work to fix problems. To see those people quit their jobs at a young age is a waste of their skills that could still be used for another 5 to 10 years. This is already happening in an informal way. Companies are seeing the benefits. Workers have enough energy to continue working and want the extra money that they get from working. One thing governments could do would be to stop paying pensions to people who work after age 65 because they have wages. But again, this would be extremely unpopular and lose votes and would cause some over 65-year-old people to quit work, so their skills would be lost. Many different things could happen to solve this problem. The important thing is that you should be aware of the problem and what is causing it, and that the causes are not likely to go away. It's one to watch because different governments will try different things over the next few years, and we should learn from that what works and what doesn't. And this is the end, my friend. See you again next time.